Hey everybody, and welcome back to Fed News, the June to July edition, the final month of this year, which means we're going to see the leaving of some superstars and potentially the debut of others. Let's get started. So, in wrestling news, Ahmed Johnson's in talks with UWA Developmental. No new signings with Developmental this month. 10 wrestlers' contracts are up this year, and 10 new wrestlers will debut in the next month. In fact, they'll debut at Battle Bowl 2 coming up. So look forward to that. But you're going to see a sneak peek of who they are here at the end of this video. So on to week ones, we had Velocity kick off with Johnny Gargano defeating Spike Dudley by submission to become the Hardcore Champion. The Rock and Roll Express defeated Norman Smiley and Reggie Express by pinfall. Typo on that one. Justin Gabriel defended his TV title against A-Train, retaining his belt. Over to the main show now is the Usos defeat the Nasty Boys by pinfall. Chris Jericho eventually defeats Cesaro by pinfall to win the U.S. title. Owen Hart and Yokozuna defeat LOD by pinfall. Jesse Gemini defeats Bob Backlund by pinfall. The main event would see John Morrison defeat Batista in a non-title match by pinfall. Or week 2 now, as Simon Diamond defeats Doink the Clown by pinfall. Sylvan defeats Simon Dean by pinfall. And A-Train actually defeats Johnny Gargano to win the Hardcore title. Short run for Johnny Gargano there in the Hardcore division. Over to Superstars, though, as Marty Jannetty defeats Larry Zbyszko. Jerry Lynn defeats Heath Slater. The Fiend defeats Darren Young by pinfall. Chris Jericho and William Regal versus Randy Savage and Cesaro ends in a time limit draw. And the main event would see Jake Gemini defeat Cody Rhodes, of all people, after Jesse helped to interfere. Over to week 3 now, as Dennis Connery defeats Giant Gonzalez by pinfall. A-Train would retain his Hardcore title over Don Morocco. And Justin Gabriel again retains his US TV title, UWA, TV title, by defeating Randy Rose. To the main show, though, is X-Pac defeats Bob Backlund. The Usos defeated LOD by pinfall. Brian Pillman defeats The Fiend by pinfall. Roddy Piper defeats Shinsuke Nakamura by pinfall. The main event would see Randy Savage and Cesaro defeat Jericho and Regal by pinfall. So we kick on to week 4 now, and it is Spike Dudley defeating Simon Dean, Doink the Clown, and Sylvan by pinfall. Reggie and Norman Smiley defeated the Good Brothers by pinfall. And the main event would see A-Train defeat Simon Diamond to retain his Hardcore title. Over to Superstars now, as Brian Pillman defeats X-Pac by pinfall. He would, of course, be getting a UWA Light Heavyweight Championship match now. Nathan Jones and Braun Breaker defeated Nasty Boys by pinfall. Jake Gemini defeats Marty Jannetty by pinfall. The Usos defeat Yokozuna and Owen Hart by pinfall. It will not change the number one contendership status. However, it was a huge upset. In the main event, see Cody Rhodes defeat William Regal by pinfall. On to the pay-per-view now, and this is what it looks like. It's the American Bash 10-man scramble match, along with Brian Pillman versus Jerry Lynn for the light heavyweight title. The Usos versus LOD versus the Nasty Boys, with potentially a world title or a tag team title shot on the line. Of course, that depends on if everyone's on the roster after that night. Roddy Piper versus Randy Savage for the IC title. Owen Hart and Yokozuna will take on Nathan Jones and Braun Breaker for the tag titles. Cesaro looks to regain his U.S. title from Chris Jericho. The main event will see Jesse Gemini versus John Morrison versus the world champion Batista. We kick it off with the pre-show of Velocity, and we got Sylvan defeating A-Train to become the Hardcore champion. Justin Gabriel defeats Johnny Gargano to retain the UWA Television Championship. Spike Dudley defeats Chris Candido to become the new International UWA Champion. And the Rock and Roll Express defeats the Good Brothers by pinfall to become the USA Tag Team Champions. To the card now, and Bob Backlund wins the 10-man scramble match. Jerry Lynn and Brian Pillman would end in a time limit draw. Only 15 minutes, of course, for that match to take place. The Nasty Boys would defeat Usos and LOD by pinfall. Roddy Piper defeats Macho Man Randy Savage by pinfall to become a two-time Intercontinental Champion. Owen Hart and Yokozuna defeat Nathan Jones and Braun Breaker by pinfall to become the new UWA World Tag Team Champions. Chris Jericho retains over Cesaro by submission to remain the United States Champion. And Batista retains, defeating John Morrison and Jesse Gemini by pinfall. Here are your new champions. As you can see, the U.S. title actually was vacated immediately after the pay-per-view was over, as Chris Jericho has given his notice that his contract is up and he did not renew it. So here are the wrestlers leaving. John Morrison Luke Gallows, Jimmy Uso, Dennis Connery, X-Pac, Jesse Gemini, surprisingly, Doink the Clown, Chris Jericho, Nathan Jones, and Darren Young. When these guys were all signed to the promotion, there was a random dice roll to see what contract lengths were. It was in from 1 to 6 years, and unfortunately, these guys all rolled ones. But out with the old, in with the new. And the new, we're going to be debuting you can't see them as well as I thought, Devon Dudley, Kevin Sullivan, Road Dogg Jesse James, and Billy Gunn, package deal. Psychosis, Rick Rude, Ezekiel Jackson, Samir and Sneal Singh. Now, Samir came with Sneal because Sneal would go on and win the World War III Battle Royal. And in the back there, you can't see it, but Bubba Ray Dudley. Of course, their shirts have not yet arrived yet. They were caught off guard. But those were the new 10 guys debuting at Battle Bowl in at least tag team matches. Could one of these guys be a future Battle Bowl winner? Could they be a future world champion coming up? Only way to find out is to tune in for year 2 as we kick off here next week.